So with that, I'm going to hand it over to the fine gentlemen at GFP, Michael and Dimitri. The show is yours. You're presenting, although it's in the smaller format right now. If you want to make that either larger or on the other screen, we're good to go.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate the intro there. As he mentioned, my name is Mike Finnegan. This is Dimitri Chiklis. We are with Granite Financial Partners. Our firm is the investment advisor on the McDermott Trucks 401k plan. Today, we're here in a little bit of a different capacity. We're here to talk a little bit about late career financial planning and talk about, we're really going to gear this towards those that are, getting close to retirement. You're starting to think about it. You have questions on what does Social Security look like? What does Medicare look like? How do I start taking these things once I do finally retire? We're also going to talk a little bit about the importance of creating a budget, cash flow planning, and really talk about how your 401k, your investments, your real estate, any and all your savings play into this plan as a whole. And as Kevin mentioned, we'd like to keep this make this as interactive as possible. Feel free to use the chat function, interrupt, unmute yourself, whatever works. We're here, we're a resource for you guys. So don't hesitate to ask questions. As I was mentioning, the first slide here, I hope everybody can see this pretty clearly. This is a quick overview of really what we're going to be covering today. Everything from setting goals, cash management, really preparing for retirement. What does that look like? Distributing assets out of your accounts that you've been growing and accumulating over the past 5, 10, 15, 20, in some situations, 30 plus years. As I mentioned, we're going to talk about managing insurance, everything from health insurance in the workplace to Medicare, to life insurance, to long-term care insurance. What does that look like? What does it mean? Is it necessarily useful for me? Do I need it? All that fun stuff. And then we'll get a little bit into estate planning, the importance of healthcare directives, financial proxies, and all of that. If you don't want to ask questions today, something I want to make clear is we're definitely a resource for you guys. We're very much available. Feel free, shoot us an email, give us a call. Our contact information is listed here. And if possible, maybe we can send an email out after this with a thank you and our contact info. So first step here, setting your financial goals. The most important part of anything is getting started. Whenever you're talking finances, it can be a little bit daunting, especially when you're talking about potentially retiring and doing something that's brand new. The first step that we like to talk about is establishing your goals. When we talk about goals, we're talking about when do you want to retire? Is it at 50, 55, 60, 65, or is it maybe even later than that? That's really the first thing that we want to determine is, in your perfect world, when do you want to ring that bell and say, I'm done, I'm retired, and kind of sail off into the sunset there. Prioritizing the order of importance, right? Order of importance from your goals to what your expectations are, what we see in the market, all of that. And then a big part of it is obviously calculating how much you will actually need at the end of the day to have a successful retirement and do everything that you've been working to do for many years. Second part of setting your financial goals, plan around the obstacles. Inevitably, there's going to be obstacles when we're talking about anything. When we're talking about retirement planning and financial planning, one of the biggest obstacles out there is procrastination and not starting. Family issues come up. A big thing that I'm sure a lot of you have seen over the past, 10, 15, 24 months is inflation. Groceries cost more. Going to the gas station is costing significantly more. So a big part of creating a financial plan is accounting for these obstacles that are going to take place over time, over your retirement years, over your working years. The effect of taxes on your retirement accounts, living longer, health problems. More people are living longer and longer. What does that look like? If you're expecting to only live till you're 80, 85 years old, nobody knows how long you're actually going to live. But what if you live even longer than that? Are you in a situation that you can support that and continue to not tap all your assets and be in a good situation? Cash management, transitioning into retirement. I know I talked a little bit about cash flows and creating a budget, creating a post-retirement budget. What does it look like? What does your lifestyle look like after you're no longer working 8 hours a day? What does that look like? Are you going to be spending more money, spending less money? It's really important to sit down and figure out, what your expectations are for retirement, taking vacations, traveling, potentially buying a second home, something along those lines. It's going to be different for everybody. Obviously, everybody has different goals. So it's important to really sit down and figure out what that is and what you're looking to do. Increase your emergency fund while you're still working. Rule of thumb for emergency funds, we typically say you want to have anywhere from 3 to 6 months of your living expenses saved in a safe, checking account, savings account, something that's liquid that you have access to, that's protected. God forbid something happens, whether it's medical issues or you lose your job or something along those lines. Avoiding new debt. Again, this is going to be case by case. It's going to be different for everybody, but really important not to, be racking up the credit cards or taking personal loans or something along those lines. And then the big part is preparing to transition from accumulating assets to taking distributions. So all of you guys have been working for years and years and years. You've been generating a paycheck every week. And for a lot of you, I'm sure you've been saving actively into your retirement accounts, whether it's a 401k at work or an IRA or some sort of investment account. The big thing is you're going to be transitioning from saving and accumulating those assets to actually beginning to tap those assets and take money out. What does that look like? What's the best way to generate that income? Instead of getting a check from ATG, you're going to be generating money and paying yourself. What does that look like between Social Security, retirement accounts, and other savings? So that's a big part of what we talk about. The second part of cash management, again, budget planning for retirement, monthly expenses, unexpected expenses, needs versus wants, right? What does it look like if you're planning to take, 2, 3, 4 vacations a year? How does that fit into your plan? Are you accounting for that? Is it possible? Those are really important things. Step 3, planning for retirement. A good rule of thumb here for anybody that's, trying to figure out how much money do I need in retirement. A good place to start and a good thing to target is to replace at least, I would say 70 to 80% of income. It says 75 to 80, but typically 70 to 80% of income replacement is a really, really good target to have. Something to keep in mind, if you do have Social Security, assuming you guys have paid into Social Security over the years, you're going to have Social Security available to you. Typically, Social Security replaces 40% of your income. So Social Security is a huge asset for retirees. You've paid into this for years and years and years. When you retire, that's when you start taking advantage of it and generating some income. Typically, that makes up about 40%. So the question is, where is that other 30 to 40% going to come from? Is it coming from retirement accounts? Is it coming from other savings? Do you have a pension from an old job? Are you planning to downsize your house that you have some equity built up in? Those are typically some places where that comes from. Consider all income sources, a little bit of what I just was talking about, and then make best use of tax advantage saving options before retiring. So take advantage of your workplace plans. Take advantage of your 401k plan. Saving in via pre-tax or saving in via Roth or some mixture of the two. I do want to take a second here and go kind of through the differences of pre-tax contributions versus Roth contributions that you guys have available to you through the 401k plan. An example I usually give is, let's say you make $50,000 this year and you put $5,000 into your account pre-tax. You're only going to be taxed as if you made $45,000 that year. You're going to get a tax deduction for putting money into that account. Once it's in the account, it grows tax deferred. You don't pay any tax on it while it's in the account. But when you go to retire and you start taking money out of that account, 100% of what you take out is taxed as ordinary income at that point. So it's really important to think about that when we're saying we got to target 75 to 80% of income. Taxes are going to play a role in that. So it's really important to think about that and think about what effect that has. Roth contributions are the exact opposite of that. So same scenario, let's say you make $50,000 this year and you save $5,000 into your plan via Roth. You're still going to be taxed as if you made $50,000. You're not going to get a tax deduction in the year that you put money into the account. Once it's in the account, you don't pay any tax on it. And once you go to retire, the big difference is any money that you pull out of contributions that you've made are 100% tax-free at that point. So it can be a huge, huge benefit for any of you guys that have saved into Roth accounts throughout the years. Having that bucket of money that's 100% tax-free to you can make a big difference in these plans. So it's important to kind of figure out which of my assets are going to be taxable, which are tax-free, which are tax-deferred, all of that. And we can really go through that with you guys and give you a good idea. Something else to think about is company match. So any match that has gone into your 401k account throughout the years, that money is always pre-tax, right? You haven't paid any tax on it when it went into the account. But when you go to retire and start taking money out, 100% of the company match is taxed as ordinary income at that point. And again, I know I'm getting a little bit into the weeds there, but if you have personal questions on your situation, feel free to reach out and we can go through it with you. Step 3, planning for retirement. Evaluate your resources. Again, this is a little bit of what I was just talking about, but this is the 3-legged stool approach. So what makes up your assets and what makes up the accounts that you're going to be pulling income from in retirement? Obviously, pretty self-explanatory. Retirement accounts, those are your 401ks, your IRAs, your Roth accounts. Social Security, we'll talk a little bit more about Social Security in a few slides here, but there's some really good resources out there that you have access to. Number one being SSA.gov. Typically, you're supposed to get a statement once a year in the mail that breaks down your personal situation and says, at your full retirement age, this is how much you're going to get in Social Security. If you wait till you're 67 or 68 or 70, this is what your benefit will be. But if you go to SSA.gov, you can actually pull that off in real time. It'll give you an exact idea of what you can expect in Social Security. And then we have real estate, other assets, pensions, if you have one, those sorts of things. Determining a distribution strategy. When should I start collecting Social Security? It's a huge question. It's one of the biggest questions we always get. The earliest you have access to Social Security is age 62. So that's the earliest you can turn on your Social Security benefit. I'm going to get into it. It might be the next slide or in 2 slides. It breaks down the different ages and what is considered full retirement benefit age for each age. The longest you can wait to take Social Security is age 70. That's the longest you can wait to turn it on. Every year that you wait to take Social Security, the benefit increases by 8%. So it can be advantageous to wait and delay to take Social Security, depending on your personal situation. And again, those are the sorts of things that we can look at with you, for you, and give you a pretty good idea and recommendation. Which assets or accounts should I draw down first? How much can I withdraw to make my money last a lifetime, right? The biggest thing, and the biggest thing is, I want to retire. I want to make sure that I'm in a good situation. I don't want to, retire at 65 and then in 15 years, have to go get a full-time job or a part-time job somewhere. It's pretty tough to look for work at that age. So it's really important to figure out, are you set up? Are you in a good situation? And we can really answer those questions for you guys. And how long will my retirement last? Tough question. Nobody knows how long, but it's good to plan for some longevity, especially nowadays. This is what I was just talking about. Social Security, when and how much, age to collect full benefits. There's some different dates there. For most people, it's going to be age 66, 66 plus. That's when you're going to get your full Social Security benefit. Again, the earliest you can take it is age 62, but it's going to be less of a benefit. These are some quick, facts from the Social Security Administration. For 2022, the maximum benefit that someone can expect to get from Social Security is $4,194 a month. The average estimated benefit, right? So on average, you're looking at $1,658. Again, this is going to be different for everybody. Definitely take advantage of the SSA website, and you can go on and see exactly what you can expect to get. A little bit more on distribution options. Systematic versus lump sum withdrawals. Should I be taking distributions from my 401k or my IRA account? Should I be doing it monthly? Should I do it quarterly, semi-annually, once a year? Again, it comes down to, most of the time it comes down to personal preference, but there can be some good ways to do it depending on your situation. Taxable versus tax-free. This is a little bit on that Roth versus pre-tax that I was talking about earlier. that pre-tax money is going to come out as taxable, and that Roth money is going to come out as tax-free. If any of you have annuities or life insurance or pensions, those are treated a little bit differently depending on what you have. Some might be tax-free, some are tax-deferred. But again, we can really answer those questions for your specific situation if you reach out. Required minimum distributions. So the IRS requires that you start taking what's called RMDs at age 72. It used to be 70 and a half, but they actually increased that out to age 72. Basically what this means is the longest you can wait to take money out of your retirement accounts is age 72. That's the longest the IRS is going to let you wait. At 72, you have to start taking a percentage out. It's usually 3 to 4% of your account value each year. And again, for anybody that was born before July 1st, 1949, your RMD date is going to be 70 and a half. But for most people, it's going to be 72. Again, that's the latest you can wait. The earliest you can start to take money out of your retirement accounts is 59 and a half. If you take money out before you turn 59 and a half, the IRS has a 10% penalty. So it can get pretty expensive if you start taking money out before then. After 59 and a half, that 10% penalty goes away completely. How long will your assets last? This is a little bit tricky to read, but I'm going to go through it here. Basically, this looks at your rate of return on the y-axis going up, and it looks at the initial withdrawal rate on the bottom there on the x-axis. The initial withdrawal rate is the amount of money that you're pulling out of your accounts per year. The lower your withdrawal rate and the higher your rate of return, the longer that your assets are going to last. If we switch that and the higher your withdrawal rate and the lower your rate of return, the quicker you're going to go through your money. So basically what this looks at is some different examples. So if we look at a 4% withdrawal rate, which typically rule of thumb is a pretty good number when we're talking about withdrawing money from retirement accounts. If we look at a 4% withdrawal rate and a 7% return on your money, that's saying that your account's going to last 72 years. So well past your retirement. So a significant amount of time. And you can see as the rate of return drops, right? So if we're generating a 6% return on our money and we're pulling out 4% per year, your account's going to last about 43 years, and on and on and on. And you can see all the different situations here. And again, we can look at this with you guys. So if you wanted to go through and really create a plan, go through cash flows and figure out where you are today, what you have for savings, what you have for liabilities, we can really give you a good idea of, based on your situation and when you're planning to retire, this is the amount of money you would need to pull out each year from your retirement accounts, and really give you a good idea of what that looks like for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years. So that's a resource that you guys have available to you at no charge. So you guys are clients of Granite Financial Partners. So don't feel, if you reach out to us, we're going to charge you fees or anything like that to have a conversation or build a plan for you. Because you are clients, it's a free service that you have available to you. So definitely reach out. Step 5. So we're going to talk a little bit about investing and investing wisely. This looks at a few different buckets. It talks about short-term goals. So this is goals for your money that are, 1 year away, 2 years away, 3 years away, anywhere less than 5 years. Intermediate term goals, anywhere from 5 to 10 years. And then your long-term goals are things that are 10 plus years away. Basically, when we look at that, we're saying short-term goals. This is money that you want to be invested conservatively. So if we're talking about, a family vacation or putting a down payment on a house, something that, is going to happen in 6, 12, 18, 24 months, we're going to want to be really, really conservative with that money. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to want it just in your savings account, something that can't lose any value, because you really can't afford to lose money on that. If you're, planning to have X amount available to you for a down payment, you can't afford to go through the fluctuations of the market. As we move our goals a little bit farther out, 5, 10 years, you can start to take a little bit more risk with that money. So you can start to be invested a little bit more aggressively. When we get past 10 years, so let's say, I'm 50 today and I'm planning to retire when I'm 65, 66, you can afford to be a little bit more aggressive with that money. So that means having more exposure to stocks and equities inside your investment accounts. I think we lost our camera there. Sorry about that. Little technical difficulty there. We're back. If we go to the next slide. Investment guidelines, this goes into a little bit more detail here. This looks at, again, a few different buckets. So we're looking at cash versus bonds versus stocks. The farther left we go, right, cash, that's your more conservative money. That's money that isn't at risk. Your principal is protected. If we're talking about your checking account or your savings account, that's FDIC insured. Regardless of what happens with the market, with interest rates, that money is protected. It's going to be there regardless of what happens. The farther to the right we go, when we start talking about fixed income and equities, fixed income bonds, you're moving a little bit more out on the risk curve. Bonds are still much more conservative, much more lower risk than stocks, but they don't carry zero risk. There is risk associated with bonds. For anybody that's noticed, interest rates over the past 12, 15 months have gone essentially straight up. The relationship that bonds have with interest rates, when interest rates are going up, bond prices are going down. So in a rising interest rate environment, bonds can actually carry a fair amount of risk. It's never going to, I shouldn't say never, but most of the time it's not going to carry as much risk as an equity portfolio or stock funds, but there is risk of principal of the value of your account going down. And then as we go farther right, stocks, higher risk, higher growth potential, for money that's, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, you can afford to be a little bit more aggressive with. And again, this is going to be different for everybody. On the next slide here, we're going to talk a little bit about risk tolerance and what type of investor are you. Typically, there's 3 different buckets. There's aggressive, moderate, conservative. A resource that we have available to you guys that we use with a lot of our clients is called Riskalyze. It's a risk tolerance questionnaire. It's completely online. You guys have it available to you. It takes maybe 5 minutes to fill out. And basically what it does is based on your response, it's going to give us an idea of whether you're an aggressive investor or a conservative investor or somewhere in the middle. And from there, what we can do is we can compare your risk tolerance to your actual portfolio. So if your risk tolerance comes in as aggressive in the way that you're invested is a lot of fixed income, a lot of stable value or cash, not much equity exposure, we can make a recommendation and say, based on your risk tolerance, you should be much more aggressive. And we can actually create a portfolio that matches up with that directly. Same situation for if you come in conservative and you're invested aggressively, right? So if you're 65 years old and you're getting ready to retire next year, and we look at your account and you're invested in all growth, it's been great for the last 10 years. I'm sure you've seen great returns, but where you're starting to get close to retirement, it's probably a good time to reassess that and become a little bit more conservative. And we can help answer those questions and really make recommendations and create a strong portfolio for you that matches that directly. Asset allocation examples. This looks at a few different examples for those that are 55 to 65, starting to think about retirement. So everything from moderate to conservative to aggressive. What you'll notice here is each of these buckets have a good chunk of fixed income exposure and cash exposure. Not much exposure to stocks. Again, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this slide because it's going to be different for everybody. I definitely recommend taking the time, completing that questionnaire, and really, looking at your specific situation and really customizing something that fits you. Managing insurance. So we got some really good feedback on the first session that we did this morning. So we added a few slides here that really go into some really good detail on Medicare and how it works. Obviously, Medicare is always a huge question. There's a lot of nervousness that is associated with Medicare. It's a brand new thing. You've probably always had health insurance associated with your workplace. It's a brand new thing where, you kind of got to figure it out yourself. Big benefit of working with us is, again, we're a resource. We can help you through this process. We can help answer questions that you have. We have a Medicare help desk that we have complete access to that we can set you up with. So any questions there? I'm going to come back and talk a little bit about LTC and life insurance. But to start, What is Medicare? Medicare is a government-sponsored health insurance program for retirees when you no longer have access to employer-sponsored group coverage. Medicare, just like Social Security, is something that you guys have paid into for years and years and years. This is a benefit that you've essentially paid for, and once you retire, that's when it kicks on. Same way your Social Security does. First thing to remember when we're talking about Medicare is at age 64, you should really start to think about Medicare. If you're 64, 63, really start thinking about it. If you're planning on retiring at age 65, you should apply for Social Security and Medicare right before you turn age 65 to avoid a gap in coverage, right? So if you retire, you're on your workplace plan, and then you wait a little bit, you're going to have a gap in coverage. You're not going to have any insurance. So it's really important to get out in front of it. Make sure you're in front of SSA and you're figuring out, this is what I'm doing for Part A, Part B, Part C. About Medicare, it's a good thing. Again, this is something that you guys have paid into for years and years and years. It's a benefit that you've really created for yourself. In most cases, it can cost less than you're currently paying for health insurance, depending on what your situation is. Sometimes you pay nothing, really, depending on what your situation is. And there's different options available, so you can really customize this benefit based on your situation. What we did is we kind of broke out the different supplements. So there's everything from Part A, Part B, Part C, Part D. It can really sound like we're, speaking a different language at this point for a lot of people. But we really wanted to go through and, give you an idea of what are these things? What do they mean? Part A, that's hospital and skilled nursing. You do not pay any premium for this. Again, this is something that you've paid into for years that is then provided to you by the federal government. Again, it avoids gaps in coverage. As many of you know, if anybody's experienced, high medical bills or anything like that, it's the leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States. Health insurance and health bills and all that can get extremely expensive. So definitely make sure that, you're ahead of this stuff. Part B, this talks about your doctors and your outpatient services. This is essentially anything that's not handled in the hospital, not prescriptions either. Typically for Part B coverage, the premiums range anywhere from, $140, $150 a month. Make sure you sign up for this. If you don't, it can result in penalties. You're typically looking at a 10% penalty. So again, really important to get out in front of it. Part C, Medicare Advantage. This Medicare Advantage, this is through private insurers. So this is through the Harvard Pilgrims and United Health Groups in the world. Average cost for this is about $20 a month. Sometimes, depending on the carrier, depending on your situation, it can cost nothing. It's ideal for healthy individuals who do not visit the doctor frequently. Individuals who do not visit doctors frequently, low monthly costs, might pay more for services when you need them. It often includes your dental, your vision, your hearing. So again, really important. All right, Part D and Part G. We're almost done with these. Part D is for drugs. So those are your prescription drugs. You pay a small premium for this, typically $30 to $40 a month. You must go through a Medicare professional for this part. You cannot sign up for the Part D part through SSA. But again, this is something that we can help you guys with. We do have access to assist with all of this. Part G, this is the umbrella plan. So depending on your health insurance utilization, Part G might make sense for you. If you visit doctors and have established medical needs, you may have some expenses that fall through the cracks and aren't picked up by the previous supplements. So Part G, as I mentioned, really acts as that umbrella. It covers you up. It helps supplement deductibles, co-pays, and any co-insurance expenses that pop up. So those are all the supplements there. How do you sign up? There's some really, really good resources around Medicare through SSA.gov, even Medicare.gov. There's really good FAQs on the website that you can go through. There's like 50 frequently asked questions that really go through anything and everything you could possibly think of right there on Medicare.gov. But anyways, to sign up, they do make it pretty easy for you. If you already get Social Security benefits, SSA will automatically enroll you in the hospital insurance plan, which is that Part A and Part B. SSA will mail you all the information you need a few months before you become eligible. If you do not get Social Security benefits, right? So if you're waiting past age 65 to turn on your Social Security, you should sign up for Medicare 3 months before you turn 65. So for anybody that's, in their 60s, 61, 62, 63, definitely have it on your radar. If you're 64, definitely set up a reminder to get this done before your 65th birthday. And then important information about Part B coverage. Because you do have to pay a premium for Part B, you can turn it down. You do not necessarily have to pay for Part B. But if you do decide to sign up for Part B later, right, so after the fact, your coverage can be delayed and you may have to pay a late enrollment penalty for as long as your Part B coverage. And that's that 10% penalty that I was just talking about on the last couple of slides. So your monthly premium will go up 10% for each 12-month period. You were eligible for Part B, but didn't sign up. So again, something important to think about. Again, like everything that I talked about today, this is going to be different for everybody, right? Everybody has different needs, different goals, different situations. So again, it's very, very important. We are a resource for you guys, so feel free, reach out, lean on us, ask questions. We're really, really happy to answer any questions that you guys have. So just want you to know that. Creating an estate plan. So to wrap up today's call a little bit, I want to talk about the importance of estate planning and wills and trusts and healthcare directives. Creating an estate plan, really the number one thing you're looking to do is maintain control, right? So you can really dictate exactly how things flow, exactly how you want them to flow. They go to the people that you want to, or the charities that you want to. Everything gets taken care of exactly the way that you'd like it to. It seeks to minimize estate taxes and other expenses. And, most important part, it helps maximize your heirs' inheritance, right, if any. And it really plans for contingencies. Beyond that, crucial documents are extremely important, says it in the name. These are your healthcare directives or your living will. Again, explicitly listing out, this is how I want things to happen. For anybody that's accumulated any assets over their life, whether it's retirement accounts or a house or cars or vehicles, anything like that, if something happens to you, you're going to want to know exactly where that's going. Beyond that, there's healthcare proxies, financial proxies for anybody that's married. That's very, very important. Anybody that has kids that are age 18 or older, you're definitely going to want to look at this, because if, God forbid, something happens to an 18, 19-year-old, even though, they still live with you, if something happens to you and they're completely incapacitated, they can't talk, if you're not named as their healthcare power, you really can't do anything in that situation. So again, it's really all about planning for, things that you don't necessarily want to plan for, but making sure that it is taken care of. So, God forbid something does happen, it's going to happen the exact way that you want it to. Beneficiary designations, just going to take a minute on this. For anybody that participates in the 401k plan, take the time, log into your account, and check and see if you have a beneficiary set up on your account. Through the BPAS website, you can go in, you can see if you have a beneficiary set up. If you don't have a beneficiary, you can elect it right online. So whether you want it to go to a spouse or your child, very easy to do. You can do contingent beneficiaries as well. You can split it. And that goes for really any account that you have, whether it's, life insurance or bank accounts or anything like that. And that's where the wills and trusts really come into place. And if you have questions on setting up a beneficiary through BPAS, give us a call. We can assist you right over the phone and help you do it. But definitely take the time to do that. Tax efficiency. Max out tax deferred accounts before retiring. For anybody that doesn't know, the maximum amount that you can put into a 401k plan this year is $20,500. For anybody that's age 50 or older, you can do an additional $6,500 into the 401k plan. Those are just the maximum amounts that you can put in. There's no minimum amount to participate in the 401k plan. So for anybody that's listening today, if you're not currently participating in the plan, definitely get started. If you're starting to think about retirement, definitely get started. Or if you're saving right now, and you're thinking about increase it, whether it's 1% or 2%, it's going to make a huge difference, even if it's, 5, 10, 15 years from now. Health savings accounts, if you guys have an HSA available to you, definitely try and get money in there depending on your health plan. Health savings accounts have the triple benefit tax treatment. Anything you put into an HSA, you get a tax deduction on. The money in it grows tax-free. And then if you use it for medical expenses in the future, like when you're retired, 100% of that is tax-free as well. So HSAs can be pretty powerful. Take full advantage of exemptions, credits, deductions, match capital gains and losses. So for anybody that has a taxable investment account, try and take advantage of, if you have a gain in the year, try and match it with a loss if possible. Again, that's a little bit in the weeds, but and be aware of tax break points when taking retirement distributions. These are all things that we do for our clients that we can really go into depth with you guys on. And again, look at your personal situation and really make recommendations for you. Next steps, set your financial goals. So going all the way back to that first slide, set your goals, right? Figure out, this is what I want to do. This is when I want to do it. And then really, start working on that. Work with a professional. Our office, we're very much happy to work with you guys. If you have somebody that you already work with them on it as well. And then beyond that, we have some really good resources. So if you're interested in doing estate planning, we have great local attorneys that can help you with that. If you have questions on taxes, we have great accountants that we work with as well, that we'd be happy to match you guys up with.
So I have a few questions that got sent to me. I know some you may have already addressed.
Yes.
One is, what do taxes typically look like for those who opt to pre-tax contributions in the 401k and similar items where you're putting in money pre-tax? What do taxes typically look like once you start to withdraw?
Yeah, really good question. So the big benefit with 401k plans historically is when you put money in pre-taxes, you get that tax deduction, which really, really helps in your savings years. The kind of age-old adage is, you save pre-tax into the plan. You're typically going to be at a higher tax rate while you're working, while you're generating income. And then when you go to retire and you start taking money out of these accounts, a lot of the time you're going to be in a lower tax rate when you're pulling that money out. But again, it really depends on your personal situation. But any money that you pull out of that account that's pre-tax is going to be taxed as ordinary income. So depending on what tax rates are in 5, 10, 15 years, that's really what it's going to be. And again, if you wanted to go through real hard numbers, we can do that and give you an idea of, this is exactly what that tax would look like based on today's numbers.
Great, thanks. Another question that came in, and I know you've touched on it, there were the 8 steps of retirement, sort of twofold question.
Yep.
What would you suggest the first step to be? And then second, what do you see as the top 1 or 2 risks financially in retirement that people have?
Yeah, really, really good question. Double-ended, I like it. Yeah, I would say the first step is really sitting down and taking a look at your current situation. So looking at where is everything, right? So if you're married, look at, what do I have personally for retirement accounts, investment accounts, bank accounts? What do I have for debt? Is there credit cards? Is there a mortgage? And then do the same thing for your spouse and really look at the household as a whole and say, this is where we're at today. And then work out from there and say, what are my goals for retirement? When do I want it to happen? Do I want it to happen in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? And then really, go from there. Obviously, I'd lean on saying working with a professional, working with our office, we can do a lot of that heavy lifting for you. But yeah, I would, the first thing I would say is look at your personal situation, look at what you've done throughout your career and, what you have for savings and everything else. As far as risks, there's a lot of risks going on in the world right now, as I'm sure you guys are aware. Investing in retirement it's always a difficult conversation because it is as personal as you can possibly get. the biggest, advice that we typically give to our clients is to work a little bit with blinders on when you're thinking about your situation and thinking about your investments, and really trying not to worry about geopolitical events and politics in general, the difference between a Democrat in the White House versus a Republican in the White House, things that you can't control. Try not to worry about the stuff that you can't control. Worry about what you can control, what you're saving today, what you're spending today. But if I had to look at it, risks, interest rates are a huge risk right now. Geopolitical events are a big risk right now. And depending on the effects that has on the market. But I kind of fall back on being invested correctly based on what your risk tolerance is, right? So if you have 3 years if you want to retire in 3 years, we can create a portfolio for you that's going to fit up pretty well with that. And
the things that you can't control will be the things that we educate ourselves on, that we help you with, right? As the markets change, as interest rates rise, all those types of things are what we're going to help you with, focus on, your plan on.
Absolutely.
You mentioned earlier certain, hopefully people who have planned for retirement are able to travel. Are there any concerns around travel, not the geopolitical concerns around travel, but with insurance, health insurance, especially if you're looking to travel to foreign countries, that someone should consider supplemental health insurance?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a big concern. I see it more as a concern when we're talking about, life insurance or long-term care insurance. It's usually a bigger question there than it is on the health insurance side. It's usually not something big that we run into, right? So if you have goals to travel, to South America or something like that, on the health insurance side, that's usually not a big obstacle, but it can come up if we're talking about life insurance and long-term care.
Great. That is all the questions that we've had in the chat. If anyone else has any questions before we end today's call for Michael or Dimitri, please ask them now. While we're waiting, any final words of wisdom?
No, we really, really appreciate you guys taking the time to participate in this. It's really great to see people, getting out of work and still participating in, a retirement conversation. Usually not, the most fun thing in the world, but it is important, and we really do appreciate you guys taking the time to, talk about this and listen to us talk. So that's really,
it is a lot of information, but just one step at a time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Focus on what needs to be addressed at that time, and move incrementally, and that's what we can help you with.
Very good. As a reminder, this presentation has been recorded. We will share this presentation tomorrow along with the survey. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Dimitri. Great evening. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
You too. Thank you.